This week on Breaking Bullying, we are going to meet with a lawyer and talk about the legal consequences of bullying and what inspired him to write a book. So we're going to hit that music and get started. Joining me this week is attorney and author Mark M. Bello. Mark, thank you for coming on to our show today.
My pleasure, Tim. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So, Mark, we talked briefly before we hit the record button. You had some experience yourself being bullied. Would you mind sharing that with me today?
Well, I'm a 71-year-old man. I practiced law for almost 50 years. And to your point about bullying, and I applaud you for doing a podcast on the subject. The incident that we're about to talk about happened to me when I was 12 years old. Here I am, 71 years old. It's still with me. I still remember it well, and I remembered it well enough, and it concerns me enough to write a book about it in my late 60s, early 70s. So that ought to tell your audience a little bit about what the bullying victim experiences when he's bullied.
Because we're talking
Uh,
about close to 60 years that this is still bugs you today.
you are correct, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Uh, I'm Jewish. I don't need to tell you what's going on in the country right now for Jewish people. Uh, Jewish people are being bullied all over the country right now. But uh, when I was a kid in middle school, my family moved from one neighborhood in the Detroit, Michigan area to another neighborhood in the Detroit, Michigan area. The neighborhood we moved from was predominantly Jewish. The neighborhood we moved to, unknown to us, had very few Jews in it. I'm 12 years old. It doesn't occur to me that you lie about who you are or what religion you are, or that it would offend anybody if you said anything other than the truth. So some kid came up to me on my first day of school and asked me what church I attended. And my answer was, I don't attend church. I'm Jewish. I attend synagogue. And I got punched in the mouth and knocked to the ground. Um, that's a true story. The counselor, I found out later, not much later, but days later, that I was one of maybe 5 Jewish people in the entire school,
Oh,
which was a unique experience for me because the numbers were completely the opposite in the school I was raised in my first 7 years of school. I think this is 7th grade, maybe 6th grade. That I can't remember, but
12 years old,
it
you're
was
about
it.
seventh grade.
Well, no, it was it was 6th grade. Last year of elementary school at the time. They since have changed the system where 7, 8, and 9 used to be um, junior high, what they called it.
Yep.
Now it's 6 through 8, and that's middle school. But at the time, 6th grade was elementary school. So it was a 6th grade incident. And I had a wonderful, wonderful Christian counselor who went to bat for me and kind of protected me throughout the school year from that point on. But the experience, as we discussed off air, stayed with me forever. And here I am at 71, recalling the incident like it happened yesterday. It's not fun to get punched in the mouth. I think most people who
No.
get punched in the mouth remember that. Um, I'm a lover, not a fighter. So that was a unique experience for me. Um, Flash forward, I'm 67, 68. I decide to write a book. I'm an author of typically adult legal thrillers. I write a series called the Zachary Blake Legal Thriller Series, and I've written 8, 9 of those. Writing a children's book was new to me. I met a wonderful illustrator at an author seminar. I told her I had an idea about writing a story and rhyme about a bullying incident. Uh, would she mind illustrating it for me? And once she said yes, I had to write the book because she's a wonderful, wonderful illustrator. Her
Yeah.
name is Melinda Faugust. She writes children's books herself, and she did a wonderful job illustrating a Happy Jack, Sad Jack, a
Yep.
bullying story, which is the um, story and rhyme that I wrote. The
Be, be,
book. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, before we get that far, because we're gonna get to that here soon, I want to go back to your school incident. Did you ever see that kid again that punched you in the mouth?
Yes.
How are those
Uh,
interactions?
well, he was made to apologize to me. He was given. I don't know what it was called back then. Sensitivity training um, is the way I would refer to it today. That that people are different, and that instead of fighting over differences, we ought to celebrate the fact that we can all get along, even though we come from different backgrounds, different races, different religions, etc. Um, I wouldn't say we became best of friends,
Yeah.
but we certainly were able to go to the same school and coexist.
Was there other incidents of bullying because of your religion as well, or was that the only time that you can remember?
That is the only time I've been bullied. As we discussed off air, there's a lot of anti-Semitism in America. Uh, the Jewish people are only a 2.5% minority in this country. We're easy pickings, and I'm certainly familiar, both as a person who is active in my synagogue and who's uh, politically active on issues involving Israel or um, other Jewish causes. I'm certainly aware of other people and other children who have experienced this, and I've represented people throughout the years who have experienced intimidation, whether they be a kid or an adult, and uh, have counseled people on how to deal with this.
Is there a legal consequence for people that are trying to constantly intimidate you?
Well, it depends on how serious the incident is.
Okay.
Uh, if you get punched in the mouth like I did, that's an assault.
No matter what
Um,
age you are, no matter what age.
doesn't matter how old you are. If somebody
Okay.
punches you, if somebody touches you, and you're offended by the touch, assault is legal. The legal definition of an assault is an offensive touching.
Okay.
Those are the terms that are necessary to allege and pursue an assault. Now, obviously, um, someone who puts his hand on your back to tell you which way to go might be interpreted by the person who's touched as being offensive. The person doesn't mean it to be offensive, and intent is an important part of the elements of proof for an assault. So I doubt that somebody innocently directing you by putting his hand on your back or on your arm, even though it offends you, would be guilty of an assault. But hurting you, like the kid hurt me,
Yeah.
is actionable, and you can sue for civil damages. and you can press charges and pursue criminal consequences. The problem is that in most situations, like the one I describe, either the school or the cops or the law enforcement agency, whatever it might be, encourages an apology, encourages the victim to drop it. And I don't think I need to tell you that it's almost like being bullied a second time.
Yeah.
You're pressured into being conciliatory, to forgiving and forgetting. And that pressure, even that, if you think about it, is a form of bullying
What's the purpose of the cops trying to get you to drop it?
because it's too inconsequential a crime to, I don't want to be flip about it, but to waste their time with. Um, Handle it at the school level. Maybe the school suspends the kid. Maybe they punish him in some other way. Maybe they bring the parents in. Maybe the parents punish him. He comes over and apologizes. Maybe he feels extremely contrite. There's all kinds of reasons why they might drop it. Um, and again, constantly harassing someone, making fun of them, calling them names, those are all assaults. Those are all bullying incidents. But there are levels of crime, some of which the school officials and or the law enforcement officials will pursue, and some of which they won't. Cornell University, for example, is an interesting example of this. Uh, the student that participated in the anti-Semitic event at Cornell went to jail. On the other hand, someone holds up a sign with a Star of David in a trash can, and that person isn't even pursued or prosecuted. It's very inconsistent, and that's part
Yeah.
of the problem. What level does this have to rise to? And by the way, that depends on the community you're in. How about being the only Jewish kid in a Christian community? You think they're going to side with you? How about being the only Christian kid in a Jewish community? Palestinians, for instance, might have a grievance in some Jewish community. I'm not defending any form of bullying. So it just depends on who you are, where you are, and what the interest is in the community to stop this nonsense.
When someone's being harassed, and that's called like verbal assault, how do you prove that? The other person says, I didn't talk to
Well, these days you can prove it pretty easily. They'll typically harass you. They'll show off for their friends, and their friends don't want to get in trouble. They'll do it online. They'll do it on Facebook. They'll do it on social media. Um, you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of criminals do a lot of stupid things on social media,
Yeah.
and they're easy to um, prove that they've done something wrong. The difficulty is how serious is the crime, and can you interest the police or the school community in pursuing it?
So basically, it's your community that decides how serious that bullying was, or that crime is.
Well, sure. I
Not
mean,
fair.
what else? How else would it be done? I mean, you can go. Uh, uh, the phrase hate crime, right?
Yep.
Well, a hate crime brings a incident And it's the ultimate, if you think about it, the ultimate example of bullying. A hate crime takes the incident out of the uh, municipal or state justice system and brings it into the federal system. And if the feds are interested in pursuing something as a hate crime, the perpetrator's in trouble without question.
But it sounds like the key word though is if they're interested, meaning if it did happen to you, they don't seem to care about it. Tough luck.
Basically, again, I don't want to be flippant about it. I just,
Yeah. It's just
if the incident is not serious enough, and there are plenty of bullying incidents that the schools just want to move on from,
yeah.
turn the page. Um, if the incident is minor enough, that's what the victim can expect. Unfortunately, now you know, by the same token, if the incident is minor, then perhaps the victim feels an apology is sufficient.
Is there
I
a
don't,
is
I don't want you to think that just because someone's penalty is an apology, that that might not solve the problem and make everybody happy.
is there an example of what a minor issue is? I don't quite understand what could be minor, what could be serious.
Calling somebody a name,
Okay.
um, uh, harassing someone in the playground,
That's all
pulling a
minor.
pulling a pigtail. When I was young, they used to they kibitzed about dipping in a a pigtail in the inkwell. Inkwells were before my time. we
Yeah.
we used we used number two pencils. Um, I'm not that old, but if you think about it, when you're my age, the joke was, and even there were books that had this in it. Peggy got her pigtail dipped in the inkwell. If you think about it, that's a bullying incident. Very little harm, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Peggy's upset, but um,
I feel like though
you've got to weigh the penalty. The penalty
yeah,
has to fit the crime.
yeah.
You've heard that expression before, I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah, of course. I feel that as my own experience of being bullied and my bullying experience, I mean, as far as physical, it only happened one time, but the words hurt over time and it keeps piling up to the point where I want to commit suicide and I attempted it because
Oy.
words still hurt. But even though I'm getting bullied by words, that's still considered minor in the in the system. It
No,
could
I'm
be in
not.
my community. Okay.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
Okay.
it depends on what the words are
Okay.
and what the intent was.
Okay.
Again, look at the Cornell incident. That's an incident involving words only. He made a rather vicious threat that law enforcement officials and the school consider a hate crime, and he got in serious trouble for it. Look at the kids that signed the letter at Harvard. And I don't want to just focus on anti-Semitism.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a Jewish guy, so anti-Semitism is important to me. But you can take it out of the Jewish faith and bring it into anything. A short guy. I'm writing a book right now about the shortest kid in the class and what being short, and I'm a short guy also, what being short can subject you to. Um, it's not all based on race. It's not all based on religion. It can be simply somebody's just got a nasty disposition.
Yeah.
And to your experience, nastiness is in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Yep.
I've had incidents where I've met somebody and been extremely offended by their speech or their behavior or their physicality. And 5 years later, I see them again and I have a visceral reaction to seeing that person. I get angry. That person doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't even know he did anything wrong. There's a lot of that out there too.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that it's your truth that matters, but in the criminal and civil justice world, it's how serious was the incident, and rightly or wrongly, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I do know some states have different various forms of anti-bullying laws too, and every state
That's true.
different policy. I
Until you get to the level of hate crime, then it's a federal offense, and that's everybody. Every state has to um, kowtow
yeah,
to the feds.
yeah, we had an incident near our area where if it was a high school, they canceled their homecoming because of it. They all 50 some kids went to this guy's car and just trashed it, and he was a foreigner. I don't know the full story on this whole thing. I just heard about it a few weeks ago, but guessing that would be a hate crime, correct? Or depending on what their purpose was. I guess we have to know the story to kind of understand the whole
Well,
thing.
hate crime, you have to be a part of a protected class
Yeah.
to have it result in hate crime status.
As a parent having a child being bullied, and let's just say it just got physical. He or she or my child just got pummeled at school, beat up. What's my legal argument if the school doesn't want to handle it? Like, what's my rights? I could, help my child overcome this, or at least get some kind of um, resolve from this incident.
Well, the first thing I would do is take the child to the hospital or to an urgent care center, have the injuries photographed, examined, diagnosed, and put on the record. You need to have physical, documentary proof that an incident happened. Secondly, I would make sure the police are notified and force them, if you have to take your statement and create a record of a criminal assault. Whether they choose to pursue it or for whatever reason decide to drop it, at least you have the record.
Yeah.
At that point, let's assume they pursue the criminal case.
Yep.
Then you get into whether or not you want to pursue it, whether or not you want to let it go, what level of punishment do you want as a victim? Will an apology suffice, or do you want to take it further? Those are some decisions you can make. Um, if the cop do decide to pursue it, and there's serious injuries to you, the crime level increases. And if he intended to hurt you or intended to kill you, let's say, I mean, he shoots a gun in the air, or he attempts to shoot a gun in the air and it hits you. Um, that's assault with intent to kill or intent to cause great bodily harm. That's jail time, and sometimes severe jail time. So when I tell you that there are levels of this, there are all kinds of levels of this. Um, Now, in the situation we just described, there are civil and criminal pursuits. Civil pursuit is you deciding to sue your attacker, your bully. Nothing can stop you from doing that. Only a judge or a jury. A judge can decide that the charges do not reach a level where you can prove an assault in a civil case. There are elements of a tort just like there are elements of a crime, and if you can't prove those elements, you're going to lose at the civil level just like you would lose at the criminal level. If you can, then you're entitled to money damages. And then that depends on whether a jury or a judge decides it's worth X dollars. And then it's also whether or not the person or persons can afford to pay you X dollars. Um, the other question in these cases, especially in school, is whether or not the school is culpable. Maybe this guy's uh, had a bunch of minor incidents that end up resulting in a more serious incident. Um, School shootings are, if you think about it, ultimate examples of bullying.
Yeah, they seem to be on the rise too. You hear,
Sometimes, sometimes the school shooter has been subjected to uh, terrible incidents of bullying. These are not easy issues, and I'm not here to tell you that they're easy.
no,
But there are consequences, and there are avenues of justice that you can pursue, and that's the message I want you to understand.
it seems like a lot of work for someone to dig through and look at that through like the legal eyes. Now, your experience of being bullied inspired you to write a book. Can you tell us about your book that inspired you?
The main reason I wrote the book is I believe that kids are getting anti-bullying messages too late in life. They're um, educated, quote unquote, by their parents. They're victims of their parents' political beliefs, of their parents' socioeconomic beliefs, of their parents' prejudices and biases. And if a parent hates black people, a white parent hates black people, the kid is likely to hate black people. If the white Christian parent or Muslim parent hates Jews, the kid will likely hate Jews. On the contrary, if a Jewish family hates Muslims, the kid is likely to hate Muslims. It's not any one religion or race. It's all of us. But we tend to learn these lessons from our parents. And when you're 5 years old, bullying is the farthest thing from your mind, right?
Oh,
You don't think about, uh, boy, what a nasty thing to do, or boy, that sounds like fun. If you're a kid that's heading the wrong way. Um, so what I tried to do was take uh, kids as young as possible, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is the cover of the book, and it's for kids as early as um, preschool. It's a story in rhyme. It's 30 pages long. It flows um, uh, like a kid's book flows.
and
C
and the name
spot,
of the
C
book.
spot, run, etc. Um, but it has an important message,
And
and
before we get that far, just for the listeners who can't see it, what's the name of that book?
It's Happy Jack, Sad Jack,
Okay.
a bullying story. It's available on Amazon and other online booksellers, Barnes and Noble. I doubt you're going to be able to find it in a physical bookstore, but you can get both the uh, ebook version, and the print version that I held up um, on any of the online, even the smaller ones, booksellers.
So, how do you reach a preschooler about bullying in your book? How do you bring it down to their level? Is it talk about name calling is bad, his hands are good? How do you get it down to their level so that they can
I
understand what's
I
bad,
I,
what's
I can't I can't speak for I can't speak in the general sense.
correct?
Specifically, what I've tried to do is I've written an activities book that goes along with this, and you it's got puzzles and games and examples and things that make a child aware of what it feels like, for lack of a better way to say it, as gently as possible, what it feels like to be bullied.
Yeah.
And it tries to put the child into the uh, bully into the bullied kid's shoes. Is it comfortable to be there? No. And the games and puzzles and activities make it pretty clear. Uh, I have a Zoom presentation for schools. A An actress who does a great job reads the book. The teacher discusses the book. They do some of the activities in the activities book, and about a half hour to 45-minute presentation um, solidly educates small children, introduces them, for lack of a better way to say it, to the concept of bullying.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. I mean, maybe somebody out there who's a child psychologist will tell me that I'm crazy. I don't know, but I just think it's so important to get kids at an age before someone else gets them and tells them that this kind of behavior is okay.
Yeah, they need to recognize what's good behavior and bad behavior. And like with my own daughter just a few days ago, she told me that a girl hit her in gym class. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna email your teacher, which she hasn't got back to me yet. But to her, to us, it's
Kind of my
to us,
point, right?
yeah, to us, maybe it's like, oh, not a big deal. But to her, my daughter, she's 5 years old, preschool. It's a big deal. She got hit in the
Yep.
ear,
Yep.
you know, and she knows that's not a nice thing to do. And I asked her, why did that girl hit you in the ear? Because she said she didn't like me. I mean, we got preschoolers already saying, I don't like you already, which is why does a kid that age even really know what that really understands? Like they'll say it out of like the spite because they're angry at you, but I don't like you or I hate you. It's like, you can hear some kids that young start using those words, and it probably comes from their parents,
Yep.
sadly. They hear those words from.
Or not. I mean, maybe it's peer pressure. Maybe
Yeah.
the person next to the kid said, "I don't like." I don't know your daughter's name, but I don't like Sarah.
Georgia. Yeah. Sarah.
Um, you know, throw something at her, and that kid wants to impress this kid and does it. Some of it's just stupidity,
Yeah.
ignorance, but um, somebody throws something not intending to hit somebody and hits your daughter. What do? Isn't that different than deliberately throwing something at your daughter?
Oh, yeah, she'll say that was deliberate, even though when you find the whole story, it was an accident.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's these are not one answer issues, and that's an important part of what we're discussing.
Yeah. a lot of it comes down to communication. Just, okay, I got
Yep.
your story, Georgia. I'm gonna go email your teacher and let's get the full story, see what happened. Let's just find out. Because
Right.
knowing Georgia too, she could have been putting her arms up to catch something in a gym class and her hand hit her ear. I don't know, but I would still like the school to tell me what happened just so I know. Because then, you know, your kid comes home saying, I got punched in the ear. You think this kid came up to my daughter and bam, right to the
Right.
ear. That's what we have in our head because that's what's going to happen. As a
Right.
parent, that's your first instinct, but it could have been an accident. And I teach martial arts for a living. And just the other day, I had a girl shaking her pants leg, kicking her pants leg because it was too big. She hit the boy next to her. That boy got upset, hit her back, and she got into like an argument. I pull these two aside. I'm like, "What happened?" This boy's like, "Well, she kicked me." I'm like, "Okay, why did you kick him?" "I was just shaking out my pants leg. It was an accident." "Did you tell him it was an accident?" "No." Might have helped if you told me it was an accident, right? And for you,
And apologized.
an apology. And for you, if someone kicks you, what should you do? Should you take action or should you tell the teacher? Tell the teacher. It's like, okay, you guys know what to do. Come on, guys. Sometimes kids are just boneheads. They just don't think. But we need to be teaching that stuff in school, like what to do,
Right.
and it needs to be preached on too. Because these
And
kids,
more they are.
yeah,
More and more these things are being taught. And that's also one of the reasons I wrote the book. I'd like it to become a teaching tool. And
I like the fact
it
that you
ought
wrote
to
it for
be a good
young.
one.
Yeah, I like the fact that you wrote something for as young as preschoolers. So that's very important. 'Cause I don't think even my anti-bullying seminars I do it for kids around 7 years old and above, just because I don't want to talk about suicide in front of kids.
Right.
Um, but I don't. But you're right. Preschool, even pre-preschool, as soon as the kids can start learning how to talk, recognize kids' emotions when a kid's sad. That's very, at least teaching the kids the word respect and what that looks like.
Let me read you a small passage. It's on the back cover. It's not a
Sure.
lot. It's not long, but it'll give you an idea of how um, child friendly this message is, but how it resonates for a child as young as Georgia. People are different in color, shape, size, ears, noses, mouth, and different shaped eyes. Different races and genders, more too. We're Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or Jew. But there's one thing in common we all have in this place. We're all valued members of this human race. Give
Right.
that message
Simple.
to a 5 year old, to a 4 year old. She may be the different color than you, but she's as human as you are.
Yep.
And she's a nice person. Don't listen to somebody telling you that this person is less than that person or worth less than that person. And that's there's more in the book,
Yeah.
but that's the central message of Happy Jack Sad Jack.
Love it. Okay. Watch my
Friendly
time here.
enough, simple enough
Yeah,
for a child.
that is perfect. And it
Yeah,
rhymes. So when things rhymes, kids
and
love it because they can
that
repeat it.
and that's what makes it fun.
Yes.
By the way,
I,
we talked about it off air. Principal Lou gets wind of this story and calls an assembly, and he's the one that gives the speech I just read to an assembly of the entire school. And the message is this kind of behavior won't be tolerated. We're all equal in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of whatever God you worship. Or if you
yep.
choose not to worship, we're all the same. We're all entitled to our space and we're all entitled to safe space. And that's the message of Happy Jack Sad Jack.
Love it. Mr. Mark Bello, if people want to find you or find more about your books that you've wrote, because you've written more books besides Happy Jack, Sad Jack, where can they find you?
I have a website. It's markmbello.com. Simple. They can Google my name and they'll find my most of my books. They can find my books on Barnes and Noble, on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, all the places where you would find books and um, online. I'm easy to find. You got to remember how to spell my name, which is Bello. People want to put other other letters on it. I get Bellows, and
It's
I get Bello with a W, and I get Bello with an S, and
it's like Jello,
it's yeah,
Jello,
Jello.
just with a B.
I actually say that a lot. I Jello with a B,
Jello with a B.
but it's markmbello.com.
Mark, I want to thank you for coming on my podcast and sharing us a lot of valuable information, giving me some new insight, especially on the legal aspects of bullying, and also hearing about how how your book is helping out preschoolers to recognize what is good behavior, what is bad behavior, and what is bullying. That's wonderful.
I would say the book is probably appropriate for anywhere from uh, last year of preschool to maybe second, third grade. Once you get past that, I think although the message is just as important to fourth and fifth grade, I think there are other choices. Um,
Do you have other books coming out to reach the older kids?
about this subject. The only
Yeah.
other book I have that would relate to the subject we're talking about is a book called Betrayal High, which is about a high school bullying incident that turns into a school shooting.
Okay.
It's heavy.
What age would you recommend that book for?
16 and above.
Okay.
It's heavy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a mass school shooting, and the purpose of the book is to do what we just did, educate people on how the law, both on the criminal side and on the civil side, might handle this kind of an incident. In the case of Betrayal High, the school um, system had plenty of warning that this kid was going to be trouble and chose to ignore it. And the book um, spells out how to pursue a school system and avoid governmental immunity um, for what we call gross negligence.
Yeah. Are your books
Um,
inspired by true events? I know this book that you wrote is fictional, but was it inspired by true
yeah,
events?
yes, it was
Okay.
inspired by a number of school shootings around the country. Not a specific one, but I wanted. Uh, the intent was to write a book that told people how to pursue justice in those situations. It's not just some kid shot up a school. He's a bad guy. Go get him. There are a lot of other players involved that may be liable in situations like that. That's a whole second podcast, Tim.
Yeah, okay. Yes. I love
but
it
it,
though.
it but it has similar implications to um, a book as simple as Happy Jack.
Love it. Mark, like I said, thanks again for coming on my podcast.